there, hope you enjoyed that. A bit of Am I Evil, that's the Metallica version of the old Diamond Head song. Now, I've not played that for 15, 20 years, so there's a little bit of dodgy bit there, but, you know, in the playing, but, you know, it's a review channel, really. Today, we're going to review this, the Caline Tantrum. Now, there's somebody else who's already done a review of this, and I quite like the review, although my opinions differ. I'm going to link it either up there or down there, right? And I'll link to it, because I think it's important to have a well-balanced review. What's this like? Well, this is what I call Schrodinger's pedal. It is simultaneously pretty nice, but also, well, I'm not going to mix with words, garbage, right? Depending on whether you put it through the front of the amp or where you're not supposed to put it, and that is in the effects loop, because obviously the effects loop is meant for modulation effects. You're not supposed to put drive effects in there. You can with preamp type things, you know, bit of a grey area, but, you know, a lot of people do. Put it in the effects loop. It's got a lot more body. It does, however, cut off a lot of the top end, right? Through the front of the amp, it's very, very fizzy. The only way this is really usable is you've got your on-off switch, right? You can get a basic sort of Iron Maiden type of tone like that, but nothing special. Recording-wise, not really up to the job. Put the booster on, however, and it does work a lot better. Now, I'm doing this through a perfectly clean amp. There's no drive at all coming out of the amp. Now, first of all, I'm going to cut to a section of the song you just heard. We're first going to hear it through the front of the amp, okay, where you'll hear the fizziness, and then I'm going to have the same riff from exactly the same section of the song with it through the effects loop. So here we go, and you'll see the difference. Pretty big difference, eh? So it depends what you're after, really. How well is it made? Well, it's a nice big block of a thing, right? Because I'm not a big fan of tiny weeny little pedals, because I've got big feet. You might catch your feet on the knobs, and, you know, if you're not careful. I've not had that bother, really. It's well enough made, like the shell. Is it a world beater? No. It costs about 25 quid. You might be able to pick them up cheaper second hand. If you need a distortion pedal to do live gigs, something that's enough, and the guys that are listening and the women that are listening, assuming we all have a gig ever again, they're not going to notice the difference, right? People, your man on the street will not notice the difference between that and a very expensive pedal. Trust me on this one. But if you had a chance to get a better pedal, I would say go for that. It's okay. It's better than some of the distortion pedals I used back in the day. When I used to be gigging and I had no money at all, being in my 20s, I had this terrible Rockman distortion pedal, which I've been trying to find to do a funny review of it because it's so bloody bad. But it's lost somewhere in the many houses and places I've lived over the years. If it ever turns up, I'll do a review. But what I would say is, it doesn't cost very much. Might make a good backup pedal in case something goes wrong live. Would I use it for recording? No. It sounds better through if you mic up an amp. Not a whole lot better. It's not going to do miracles. It's okay. There's probably better pedals you can spend your 20 quid on, right? That's my basic review of the whole thing. Now, I'm not going to put a musical section at the end of this, like I have for some of the other videos. Reason for that's quite simple. When I'm doing a full production thing with all the instruments and stuff, it's more of a pain in the backside to do and get done in a week than it is if it's just an acoustic stuff, like stuff with a slide or whatever, you know. That's fairly easy. So I might try and keep them either at the start or during the course of the video going forward. So in sort of rounding up all this, sounds better through the effects loop, sounds pretty rubbish to the front of the amp, but, and here's the interesting thing, if you combine them both together, like, because I've obviously double tracked the guitars on that, right, and then add a third guitar in as well. If you wait after the diddly 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 bit, right, there's a third guitar which you'll have noticed there to add body. It sounds, you know, it's not the best metal tone in the world, but it sounds passable. when you combine them together, because the two completely different tones work as a unit then. But it's really up to you. As I say, watch the other review that's, the other guy doing. I can't remember his name at the moment because, after 2 strokes, memory's a bit full of holes. I'll put it, as I say, it'll either be up there at some point or down that end amongst the description. So I'll see you all next time. My name is Wayne Robson. This is Skip Musician Reviews, and I'll see you all next time.